How stupid would that make the establishment look if they choose to do that? And what a discourtesy from the main parties, right? If there's a by-election, for the other main parties, the Labour and the Tories and the Lib Dems, they bottled it like cowards because they didn't want to lose to Nigel. So they threw their toys out the pram and said, we're not going to play.
So if, and I stress the word if, Mr Farage is found guilty of anything, and to the level of suspension that it requires a by-election, that is the establishment's fault, is it?
Well, it will be the Commissioner that makes that recommendation to the committee, who then make a recommendation to the House of Commons on the number of days that as you say...
What is up, everybody? Harry here. This is Nick Ferrari on LBC, covering the Clacton by-election, where Nigel Farage won again, but was a no-show at his own count. Farage claims a security threat kept him away, but Essex police say they never advised any candidate to stay away. Deputy Leader Richard Tice defends the decision on air, and Ferrari keeps pressing him to reconcile that with Farage's own earlier comment about not wanting to be demeaned and humiliated. Then pollster Joe Twyman gives a genuinely neutral read on the actual numbers. Let's get into exactly what holds up here. Get subscribed if that's useful to you. Let's get into it.
Is it because he didn't want to be demeaned and humiliated, as he said, or you're now telling it that it's his security team who overrode Essex police? Which is it?
I've just told you, I'm delighted to tell you again, I trust the judgment of Nigel's security team above everybody else.
So his suggestion he would be demeaned and humiliated is nonsensical.
If you're going to ask me a question, do me the courtesy of letting me answer it.
It was almost precisely 1 hour ago that the acting returning officer stood up in Clacton and started to give his results. My colleague, LBC's East of England correspondent Shivani Sharma, was there at the count at Clacton Leisure Centre and joins me now to give us all the latest details. Shivani, morning to you.
Morning, Nick. Well, where to start? From a no-show to fights over who said what and flashing bow ties. It's been quite the by-election. 34 candidates, 51 ballot boxes later. We've had the result come in, as you say, in the last hour or so. As predicted, a victory for Nigel Farage.
Harvey Jonathan David, commonly known as Count Binface, the Count Binface Party, 9,455. Farage Nigel, Reform UK, 22,239. The electorate is 79,785, and the ballot papers issued, as referred to above, is 35,401, meaning that the turnout was 44.37%. And I therefore do hereby declare that Nigel Farage is duly elected as the Member of Parliament for the Clacton constituency at this election.
So as you heard there, Nick, the results in, Farage won more than 22,000 votes, marginally more than he did in 2024. Count Binface doing pretty well himself, 9,000 votes. For context, the Tories got 12,000 in 2024, second place to Farage, so not a bad result for him either. But the key moment, Nick, the other key moment of this by-election is that Farage was a no-show. We were expecting him to turn up here, to come and do his celebratory speech. We were all gearing up for his arrival, but he claims that he was advised not to come by Essex police because he says there was an organised campaign to disrupt and degrade the result.
I'm not scared of these people, far from it. But I'm damned if I'm going to stand on a stage having won a resounding victory, a ringing endorsement of all that I've tried to fight for and you try to fight for, and be demeaned and humiliated by nobodies. And I will not, sadly, be attending the count, which means I'm going to be here all night.
And Nick, the plot thickens and the confusion continues because Essex Police have a completely different version of events. Essex Police said it had a proportionate and robust policing operation to ensure that the safety and security of all participants were upheld. But here's the killer line. LBC understands that Essex Police did not advise any candidate not to attend the count. Questions now arising as to why Farage took that very unusual decision not to turn up to his own count today. Why did he decide instead to go to a so-called Farage fest outside of Clacton to party with his supporters?
Shivani Sharma, LBC's East England correspondent, reporting 9 after 7. Let's put some of those questions now to Richard Tice, who is Deputy Leader of Reform UK and, of course, a Reform UK MP who joins me now. Thank you for your time, Mr Tice. We'll talk about the impact of the result in a moment, but can you just clear up, why was Mr Farage not at the count last night or the early hours of this morning? Morning.
Good morning. Because his security team were very concerned about a credible threat to his security, and with the greatest of respect, I would suggest to anybody, I don't think anybody should have the temerity to question our judgments and our security team's judgment about security and safety. People have no idea
what was the
level
official
of threats and risk that we face.
Mr Tice, what was the official guidance from Essex Police?
I don't know what the official guidance was. The point is, Nick, ultimately, it's not the police who decide as to whether or not Nigel is kept safe. It is his security team. They are tasked with keeping him safe and secure and bluntly alive, and I respect their judgment in preference to anybody else's judgment.
In preference to Essex Police saying they had a robust police operation in place.
That's lovely if they did. Good for them. Ultimately, it's Nigel's team who are tasked with keeping him safe, secure and alive. And I would just gently suggest to you, let's trust them, shall we?
And just lastly, before we get to the result, this appears also to be at odds because we heard Mr Farage said he would not be attending because he didn't want it to be demeaned and humiliated. So that's nothing to do with his safety. That's he doesn't want to stand next to someone dressed as a dustbin. So we have two lines going here, Mr Tice.
Nick, Nigel has just won an outstanding victory. He's got... Voters in Clacton have said we want more Nigel, not less Nigel. He secured 63% of the votes, 1,000 more votes than last time on a much lower turnout.
Yes, we will get to that. But he's not, Mr Tice. It would have been quite extraordinary if your colleague, Mr Tice, it would have been quite extraordinary if your colleague had lost. We will, in a moment, talk about the percentages and all of that. But is it because he didn't want to be demeaned and humiliated, as he said, or you're now telling that it's his security team who overrode Essex Police? Which is it?
I've just told you. I'm delighted to tell you again. I trust the judgment of Nigel's security team above everybody else.
So his suggestion he would be demeaned and humiliated is nonsensical.
If you're going to ask me a question, do me the courtesy of letting me answer it. I've just told you, let's trust Nigel's security team to keep him safe, secure and alive.
Why did he say he would feel demeaned and humiliated in attending then?
That's got nothing to do with the security point. They are separate
No, but
points.
why did he say that?
I don't know, Nick.
But isn't that the whole political process?
No.
The man who went on to be Prime Minister was happy to share a stage with a man dressed as a dustbin.
You're happy for him to go to an event and potentially, in some way, to have some security.
No, Mr Tice.
I do think,
Mr Tice, I'm talking about the aspect of being... Mr Tice, no, with respect, I'm talking about the point of being demeaned and humiliated. So the man who went on to be Prime Minister is happy to share a stage with a candidate, a rival dressed as a dustbin, but Nigel Farage is not, because he would be demeaned and humiliated. That's a strange look, isn't it, for a man who presumably wants to be Prime Minister?
He does want to be Prime Minister, but to do that, you have to remain safe, secure and alive. And bluntly, that is the important thing. Over and above the result, which I'm sure we're going to talk about now.
Yes, let's talk about it. A few more votes than last time out. Is this
on a much lower turnout?
Yes, so a lower turnout, because I could argue people weren't that interested, Mr Tice. A lower turnout.
Well, that's the nature of by-elections. You always get a lower turnout. So therefore, to secure about a 5% increase in the number of votes cast is an outstanding result. I would suggest probably unprecedented. And that shows that the good constituents of Clacton, they have said, in the face of an absolute onslaught from the media and the establishment, they've said, actually, thanks, but we want more Nigel, not less Nigel. And therefore, it's the establishment and the mainstream media who've been humiliated by this result.
Well, isn't the reality, when you say they want more Nigel, They may well indeed have more, Nigel, because if these parliamentary inquiries find against him, they could be doing it all again within a matter of weeks, Mr. Tice. Another by-election.
And how ridiculous would that be? How stupid would that make the establishment look if they choose to do that? And what a discourtesy from the main parties, right? If there's a by-election, for the other main parties, the Labour and the Tories and the Lib Dems, they bottled it like cowards because they didn't want to lose to Nigel. So they threw their toys out the pram and said, we're not going to play.
So if, and I stress the word if, Mr. Farage is found guilty of anything, and to the level of suspension that it requires a by-election, that is the establishment's fault, is it?
Well, it will be the commissioner that makes that recommendation to the committee, who then make a recommendation to the House of Commons on the number of days that may, as you say, if.
I know.
But at least you had the courtesy to say if, unlike many senior politicians like Kemi Badenoch, who've said when. In other words, he's guilty already before a decision's been made, which proves my point and our concern about an establishment stitch-up. Essentially, this may be a predetermined result.
All right. I'm grateful for your time this morning. Richard Tice, thank you.
Watch the exact gap between the two explanations Ferrari keeps returning to, because it's worth stating plainly rather than treating as a matter of interpretation. Farage's own recorded words give demeaned and humiliated by nobodies as his stated reason for skipping the count, delivered before the result was even announced. Tice's explanation, a credible security threat identified by Farage's own. Protection team is a separate and different claim. Both things could theoretically be true at once, a security concern and a distaste for sharing a stage with minor candidates. But Tice never actually reconciles them when asked directly why Farage said what he said. He just repeats that the security team's judgment should be trusted. Declining to explain a specific quote isn't the same as explaining it, and that gap is worth naming precisely rather than smoothed over. The Essex police dispute is worth being precise about too, because the two claims aren't actually as flatly contradictory as they're sometimes framed, even though there is a real discrepancy. Essex police confirmed they ran a proportionate and robust security operation, which isn't in dispute, and separately stated they did not advise any candidate to stay away from a count. Tice's position is that Farage's own private security team, not the police, made the call to not attend, which is a coherent claim that doesn't strictly require the police to have issued that specific advice. Where the tension remains genuine is that Tice admits he doesn't actually know what guidance the police gave, while confidently asserting a credible threat existed, which is a specific factual claim made without citing its source. The vote share numbers deserve to be treated with the same precision Twyman brings to them because both the positive and more cautious framings are accurate, depending on which specific number you're looking at. The raw vote total did rise by roughly 1,000, which is a real positive fact for Farage, but turnout fell, and Farage's share of the vote actually declined to under 2/3 despite facing no major party. The competition, which is the specific context that makes resounding victory a more contestable characterization than a real but mixed result, which is closer to Twyman's own framing. Both facts, the raw vote increase and the falling vote share against weaker opposition, are true simultaneously, and citing only one while ignoring the other gives an incomplete picture in either direction. Tice's closing argument that a potential future by-election would be the establishment's fault if triggered by a parliamentary suspension is worth flagging as a logical leap rather than a factual dispute. If a suspension results from an independent standards process finding wrongdoing, attributing the resulting vacancy to establishment conspiracy rather than to the underlying finding itself skips over the actual mechanism causing it, regardless of what that mechanism eventually concludes. If breakdowns like this are useful to you, get subscribed to Harry Unfiltered, and I'll keep checking the specifics fairly, one interview at a time. It's also worth crediting Twyman specifically for the framing he brings to this. Separate from either political side's spin, he doesn't dispute that the vote increase is a genuinely positive number for Farage, and he says so plainly, while also noting that a bare vote count isn't the only thing worth weighing when assessing how the by-election actually landed. That's a useful habit worth naming. A single favorable statistic and a fuller, more complicated picture aren't in conflict. They're just answering different questions. And a fair account usually needs both, rather than picking whichever one supports the conclusion you'd already reached.